My name is Emily. When my own mother told me I had to pay $500 a month to live in the room I grew up in, I didn't argue. I packed and left. What happened after that changed how my family looked at money and at me. If you've lived through something like this, tell me in the comments. My mother set the mail on the counter and didn't look up. "You're 18 now," Linda Carter said. "If you're staying here, rent is $500 a month." The number landed between us like a receipt printed too fast. No explanation followed, no pause for questions. She slid a pen from the drawer and wrote the figure on a scrap of paper, then pushed it toward my side of the counter as if this were a renewal notice. "I'll need it by the 1st," she added. Nothing in her tone suggested negotiation. The fridge hummed, a neighbor's car door shut outside. Linda folded the paper once and left it there, square and final. There was nothing to argue with, no terms to clarify, no reason offered. The pen rolled to a stop against the edge of the paper. She reached for her phone and started scrolling. "Okay," came out of my mouth. Not loud, not soft, just enough to move the moment forward. She didn't look up. The room kept doing what rooms do. A clock ticked. A light flicked off down the hall. Linda's thumb moved in steady swipes. The paper stayed where it was. I went to my room and pulled a suitcase from the closet. Clothes went in first, work shirts, jeans, socks. Toiletries followed. The framed photo stayed on the shelf. So did the lamp and the spare blankets. Books lined up the same way they always had. The bed remained made. A phone charger came off the wall. The rest stayed plugged in. In the kitchen, Linda opened a cabinet and rattled dishes. A cabinet closed. A text alert chimed from her phone. "You taking the car?" she asked without turning. "No. Keys are by the door. They'll be there." That was it. No warning about bills, no reminder about garbage day, no comment about timing. The house absorbed the exchange and carried on. At the door, the folded paper was still on the counter. 500. No date, no signature. I left it where it was. Shoes went on, the door opened, the handle clicked back into place. The driveway felt longer than usual. The suitcase bumped against my leg, wheel catching on a crack. I adjusted the handle and kept going. My phone buzzed once. A notification from my bank thanked me for setting up a new account earlier that morning. The message ended with a cheerful line about financial independence. It arrived before I reached the car. I loaded the suitcase, shut the trunk, and sat behind the wheel for a moment. The studio came with a single window, a narrow counter, and a lease printed in a font that assumed people read fine print for fun. Boxes stayed unopened. A mattress rested on the floor. The suitcase leaned against the wall like it planned to leave again. Rent went through the same afternoon. The confirmation email arrived before the receipt from the grocery store. Work didn't slow down. The warehouse clock punched the next shift into place. Pallets moved, scanners beeped, names floated past on clipboards. Extra hours stacked without ceremony. Breaks shortened themselves. Messages began to collect. An aunt texted first. "Your mom says you left without warning." A cousin followed. "She's worried. You should call her." Another came with advice wrapped as concern. 500 isn't that bad these days. No one asked when the amount started. No one asked whose idea it was. At lunch, the phone stayed face down. A protein bar vanished in 3 bites. Coffee replaced it. The afternoon dragged. Evening took its place. Marcus Hill noticed the extra badge scans. He ran the late shift and had the habit of counting who stayed past midnight. "You're burning both ends," he said, leaning against the vending machine. "Temporary," came back without emphasis. "New place?" "Studio." "How much?" "Affordable." He nodded once. "Utilities separate?" "Yes." "Car paid?" "Yes." "Schedule hold?" "For now." That was the conversation. No sermon, no story about family. Marcus pushed off the machine and headed back to the floor. The vending machine ate his dollar and kept it. He didn't argue with that either. By the 3rd night, a couch cushion served as a pillow during break. The room buzzed. Someone laughed 2 aisles over. A forklift backed up and announced itself to the universe. Eyes closed for a moment that stretched longer than planned. A supervisor tapped the table with a pen. Shift resumed. At the studio, the mailbox filled with flyers. A pizza menu slid under the door. A welcome packet from the complex explained trash days and parking rules. The building sent an email reminding residents to label packages. The subject line used an exclamation point. The family group chat lit up. "Your mom's upset. She's been crying. Just talk to her." Replies went unsent. A response drafted, deleted, drafted again, then erased. The phone returned to the counter. Dishes waited. Laundry piled. An email arrived from the electric company. The subject read, "Account update." It thanked the customer for choosing paperless billing and confirmed the address on file, my mother's house. The note ended with a polite assurance that service would continue uninterrupted. The timing felt deliberate, though it wasn't. Systems never were. At work, Marcus passed by again and set a bottle of water on the table. "Eat," he said. I did. "When?" "Earlier." He didn't press. The bottle stayed. A voicemail appeared from a number not saved. The transcription guessed wrong at half the words. It mentioned family. It suggested reconsidering. The tone sounded like a committee. Another message followed, shorter. "Please call." The studio phone rang. No one used it. The ring cut through the room anyway, sharp and impatient. The caller ID flashed Linda Carter. The call went unanswered. The ring stopped. A minute later, the phone vibrated with a text. "We need to talk." Back at the warehouse, a notice posted near the clock warned about overtime limits. The paper curled at the edges. Management asked for volunteers anyway. Hands went up. Hours moved around. The electric company sent another email the next morning, cheerful and precise. It confirmed the due date and offered autopay options. The footer included a survey link asking how satisfied customers felt about communication. That evening, the phone rang again. Linda's name filled the screen. The call went to voicemail. The message arrived immediately. "Emily, I don't know what you think you're doing," she said. Her voice wavered, then steadied. "The house feels empty. The bills didn't stop. The electric—" She paused, drew a breath that didn't quite make it. "I can't keep up by myself." A knock sounded down the hall of the complex. Someone argued about parking. The hallway settled. At work the next day, Marcus checked the board and shifted assignments. "You're off early," he said. "Can't," came back. "Can," he replied. I changed it. The studio door clicked shut behind me sooner than expected. The room waited. The phone rang again. This time the call connected. "Hello?" "I don't understand why you're doing this," Linda said. "Do you know how high the electric is? There's no one here anymore. The house—" Her words tangled. "I'm sitting alone." The line stayed open. A car alarm chirped outside and stopped. A neighbor laughed somewhere down the hall. "I need help," she said. The call ended without a goodbye. Another message arrived before the clock on the stove corrected itself. "You're being stubborn," Linda wrote. "This doesn't have to get ugly." At work, the parking lot filled and emptied twice before noon. Someone leaned on a horn too long. A delivery truck idled where it shouldn't. Lunch came from a paper bag, eaten standing up near the loading bay. Grease soaked through and left a mark that didn't matter. A cousin called during the afternoon lull. "You could just pay it," she said, "for now. It's cheaper than all this stress." "All what?" "This." She meant the calls, the explanations, the discomfort of people choosing sides without choosing responsibility. The call ended with a promise to check in again. The promise did not feel mutual. Between shifts, a bank statement opened on the phone. The numbers lined up the way numbers do when they've been consistent for years. Electric payments, month after month, moving out of an account that had my name on it. The address matched the house, the account holder did not. A second statement followed, then a third. The pattern stayed polite and regular. No late fees, no drama, just proof. That evening, a real estate office near the freeway still had the lights on. The door chimed when it opened. A woman at the desk smiled with professional timing. "How can I help you?" "Looking for a studio," I said. "Budget?" "Flexible." "Timeline?" "Immediate." She typed, nodded, and slid a clipboard across the desk. "Any rental history issues?" "No." "Co-signers?" "Not needed." A printer hummed. A brochure appeared, glossy and confident. The woman tapped a page with her pen. "The market's tight," she said, "but tenants who can pay tend to find something." The sentence landed clean. No subtext, no sympathy, just a statement shaped by repetition. "Do you have a card?" I asked. She handed one over, corners crisp. Name, phone number, email. The kind of object meant to travel. Outside, the parking lot offered a strip of shade that didn't help much. The car unlocked. The card slid into the console and stayed there for a moment. The phone buzzed again. "Everyone thinks you're punishing her," another relative wrote. "You don't have to make a point." The message sat unanswered. The engine turned. Traffic crept and then released. At the warehouse, a supervisor asked about availability next week. A schedule changed hands. Names moved. The floor kept pace. Later, at a fast food place near the loading docks, an order number flashed and disappeared. A tray slid across the counter. The cashier said, "Have a good one," and meant it for the next person, too. The phone rang. Linda again. "I don't recognize you," she said when the call connected. "This is cruel." "It's a bill," I said. "So now I'm just a landlord?" "You asked for rent." A pause stretched. "You know I can't manage this alone." "I don't live there." "You lived there." "Not anymore." Her breathing changed, sharpened. "You're leaving me with everything." "The account isn't mine." "Don't do this," she said. "I'm your mother." A car passed. Someone laughed in the booth behind me. The tray stayed put. The call ended on her side. Back in the car, the console opened. The business card came out. The name looked neutral enough to handle the task. A text went out with the photo of the card attached. "If you need a tenant," the message read, "this is who to call." The send confirmation chimed. Minutes passed. No response. 10 more followed. Still nothing. At the studio, mail waited in the box. A notice from the complex thanked residents for updating emergency contacts. The electric company sent another reminder, cheerful as before, offering budget billing. The email addressed Linda by name. A voicemail arrived from an unknown number. The transcription struggled. "You've gone too far," it guessed. "Family doesn't treat family like—" The phone returned to the counter. Dishes clinked. Water ran and stopped. At work the next morning, Marcus glanced over the schedule. "You good tonight?" he asked. "Yes." "Need anything?" "No." He nodded and moved on. The phone rang before sunrise. Not Linda's number this time. An unfamiliar area code flashed and kept flashing. "Hello?" "Good morning," a woman said, voice clipped and practiced. "This is Desert Valley Electric calling about a past due balance at your residence." "That's not my address," came back immediately. "Our records list you as a contact," she replied. Keyboard clicks followed. "We show continued occupancy." "I moved out." "When did you vacate?" "A few weeks ago." "Do you still receive mail there?" "No." "Do you maintain financial responsibility for the account?" "No." A pause, then more typing. "For verification," she said, "can you confirm you no longer reside at that property?" "Yes." "Thank you," she replied. "I'll update the file." The call ended with a tone meant to sound pleasant. A second later, an email arrived. Subject: "Thank you for updating your information." The message thanked me for keeping records accurate and reminded customers that timely updates help ensure uninterrupted service. The irony sat there, fully formed, no embellishment needed. At work, Marcus noticed the phone still in hand. "Everything okay?" "Utility company," I said. He nodded once. "They don't miss a beat." "No," came back. "They don't." The shift moved forward anyway. Pallets rolled, orders cleared. The routine absorbed the interruption like it always did. Mid-morning brought another call. Linda this time. "They shut it off," she said without greeting. "The power's gone. Do you know what that means?" "It means the bill wasn't paid." A sharp inhale. "I didn't have it all. You know that." "I don't live there." "You left me with nothing." "That's not accurate." Her voice climbed. "I raised you. I kept a roof over your head." "You charged rent." "That was different." "How?" "You know how." The explanation never came. A notification buzzed through from the bank during the pause. A fraud alert, routine, asking to confirm activity. The timing felt pointed, though it wasn't. Systems rarely were. "I'm not responsible," I said. "You could fix this," Linda shot back. "One payment, just until I catch up." The line stayed open. Words waited for a place to land and didn't find one. "Emily," she said, slower now, "you're doing this to punish me." "No." "Then what do you call it?" "I call it separating accounts." Silence stretched and then snapped. "You're tearing this family apart," she said. "Everyone knows it." The call ended. By noon, a message came from the electric company again, confirming the account update. It included a link to start service at a new address if needed. The language stayed helpful and neutral. Another email followed, this one from the bank. A courtesy notice about a declined transaction tied to Linda's account. No details, just a suggestion to contact customer service. A coworker asked to swap shifts. The answer stayed the same. Work filled the hours until the phone buzzed again. "Do you have time to come by?" Linda asked. "There's paperwork. I don't understand it." "I'm at work. This can't wait." "It will." A sigh cut through the line. "I can't believe you do this." "Do what?" "Stand there and let things fall apart." "I'm not standing there." The words came out flat, factual. The call ended without resolution. After the shift, the drive took longer than usual. Traffic slowed and then released. A billboard promised fast loans with no credit check. The message stayed visible just long enough to register and then passed. At the old house, the porch light didn't come on. Linda opened the door anyway. "They said you changed the account," she said, pointing toward the dark hallway. "They said you told them you don't live here." "That's correct." "You embarrassed me." "The system asked." "You didn't have to answer." A stack of envelopes sat on the table. Utility notices, credit card statements, a bank letter marked urgent. None of it was opened. "Why didn't you tell me about these?" I asked, nodding toward the pile. "Because I handle my own business." The bank letter caught attention. The logo was familiar. The wording was not. "They're asking for payment," I said. "I know what it says." "How many cards are there?" "That's not your concern." The room held the question anyway. "They wouldn't have cut the power for one late bill," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "So now you're auditing me?" "No, I'm reading." The phone buzzed again. Another automated message from Desert Valley Electric thanked customers for their patience during service interruptions and reminded them of payment options. Linda saw the screen. "You did this," she said. "You set this up." I updated my address. That was enough. The realization settled slowly, not with shock, but with clarity. The rent demand hadn't been about survival. The numbers didn't support that story. The timing didn't either. "You needed control," I said. Her mouth opened, then closed. "I needed help." "You asked for rent." She stepped back as if struck. "You think you're better than me now." "No." "Then why won't you fix it?" "Because fixing it keeps me tied to it." The bank letter slipped from her hand and hit the table. Papers shifted and revealed more notices beneath, older than the rest. The phone vibrated again. A final email for the day confirmed that the account holder remained responsible for restoring service. Dinner plans dissolved. The drive back felt automatic. At the studio, the stove clock blinked wrong again. The phone rested on the counter, face up. A new message came through from Linda, half-written, unsent. Then nothing. Laundry went into the machine. The letter arrived folded too neatly to be casual. A government seal sat in the corner, calm and official. It thanked me for my time before asking for it. Verification of financial relationship, the heading read. The rest followed in clipped lines, dates, names, a request to confirm whether I provided ongoing support to Linda Carter. A checkbox offered space to explain. The envelope went back on the counter. Coffee brewed and cooled. The day moved anyway. By the time I reached the social services building, a short line had formed near the entrance. People shifted weight from one foot to the other. Paperwork clutched like proof of effort. A sign taped to the door listed acceptable forms of identification. Another reminded visitors that false statements could result in penalties. Linda stood near the wall, arms crossed. She looked smaller there, as if the building had already decided something about her. "So you did come," she said. "I got a letter." "They told me you might," she replied. "You should have called first." A clerk stepped outside and called a name that wasn't ours. The door opened and closed again. "They asked if I had family support," Linda said. I told them the truth. "What truth?" "That my daughter walked out and left me alone." "That's not accurate." Her jaw tightened. "You stopped paying. I stopped living there. They don't see it that way." "They asked for facts," I said, "not feelings." Linda laughed once, sharp. "They asked if I had help. I said I did. They asked where it went. And you pointed at me. You were always there," she said. "You handled things." That part was true. Bills had moved quietly from my account for years. Electric, internet, the small charges no one else noticed. It had seemed easier that way. A woman with a clipboard motioned Linda forward. "Ms. Carter?" Linda went, then turned back. "You don't have to do this," she said. "We can fix it together." The door closed behind her. The letter stayed folded in my bag. A second copy lived on my phone, scanned and waiting. Back at the studio, the table filled with statements pulled from email archives. Transfers lined up in rows, months stacked on months. The amounts weren't dramatic, which made them worse. Consistent, reliable, invisible. A notice from the agency arrived by email before noon, confirming receipt of Linda's application. It mentioned dependent support in neutral language and asked for corroboration. The tone stayed polite. A follow-up message thanked me for prompt communication, though nothing had been sent yet. At work, Marcus found me staring at the phone. "Something's off," he said. "Paperwork," I replied. "That's never just paperwork." No, he didn't push. He handed over a schedule change and moved on. Another email landed before the shift ended. A request to submit documentation within 10 business days. A list followed. Bank statements, utility records, proof of residence. The system worked efficiently. That evening, Linda called. "They think I lied," she said. "They're asking questions. They're verifying. They're saying I claimed support that isn't current." "Because it isn't," her voice rose. "You know I depended on that." "I know." "Then why are you doing this?" "Because I was never listed," I said. "Not on the house, not on the account." "That didn't matter before." "It does now." Silence stretched, then broke. "You're choosing paperwork over family," she said. "I'm answering what they asked." "You could leave it vague." "They don't accept vague." A pause followed, heavy enough to feel deliberate. "I raised you," Linda said again. "I gave up things." "So did I." The words surprised both of us. "You didn't have to," she replied quickly. "No one asked you." "That's the problem." The call ended without resolution. Later, at the studio, every transfer got highlighted, screenshots saved, statements downloaded. A folder formed on the desktop labeled by year. The process felt clinical, almost generous. No interpretation required, just records. An automated reminder popped up from the agency, cheerful and firm. "Please remember to submit all requested documents by the due date to avoid delays." The message included a smiley icon. Midnight came and went. Laundry finished and waited. The stove clock stayed wrong. A new email arrived from Linda, drafted in fragments. "They're treating me like a liar. You know I'm not. This is too much." The reply field stayed empty. By morning, another letter arrived. This one acknowledged my status as a potential contributor and requested clarification. It reminded recipients that providing false information could result in penalties. The tone stayed even. The consequences did not. Back outside the social services office, Linda paced the sidewalk. She stopped when she saw me. "You don't have to hand anything over," she said. "They can't make you." "They can ask," I replied. "And you'll just give them everything?" "Yes." Her face shifted through disbelief into anger. "You want them to see me like this?" she said. "You want them to judge me." "They already are." "That's on you." "No," I said, "it's on the file." The door opened again. A clerk called my name this time. Linda reached out as if to stop me, then pulled her hand back. Inside, a desk waited with a stack of forms. The clerk explained the process without inflection. Dates mattered. Accuracy mattered more. "Do you have documentation?" she asked. "Yes." A USB drive slid across the desk. Statements followed, screenshots, utility records. The clerk checked boxes and nodded. "Thank you," she said. "This helps clarify the situation." Clarify was the word she used. The papers disappeared into a folder with a printed label. The system accepted them without comment. When the building door closed behind me, the phone vibrated with another automated message, confirming successful upload and reminding participants to retain copies for their records. I stood there long enough to read it twice, then walked toward the car, knowing the choice had already set things in motion. The bank lobby opened early and smelled like toner and air conditioning that never quite adjusted. A number printed from a small machine landed in my hand. It told me to wait. A man behind the counter called the next customer. A woman argued softly about fees. Someone sighed, too loud. The board clicked forward. When my number came up, the banker glanced at the screen and nodded. "You're here about account clarification?" "Yes." He asked for ID. A keyboard tapped. The screen reflected numbers I already knew, but hadn't lined up this way before. "These payments," he said, turning the monitor slightly, "have been consistent." "They're mine." "They're tied to a property you don't own." "That's correct." He clicked again. "And this account holder, Linda Carter, has multiple cards open." "How many?" He checked. "More than one." A statement's printed and slid across the desk. Utility payments showed up first. Internet, small service charges. The rhythm stayed steady across years. Then came the cards. Balances climbed and dipped. Purchases scattered across categories that didn't overlap with household needs. "These aren't shared accounts," he said. "No. Your name doesn't appear on any of them." "That's important." He nodded. "It is." A notification popped up on his screen. "We also have a request from a government agency asking for verification." "Social services," I said. "Yes." The printer hummed again. The sound felt louder than it needed to. "At this point," he said carefully, "we'll need to document separation of responsibility." "What does that involve?" "Signatures, statements, a formal note that you're not a guarantor." "Do that." He slid papers over, clipped together neatly. Lines waited for ink. At the record center across town, the process repeated with different furniture. A clerk pulled files and checked dates. The language stayed dry. "These transfers go back several years," she said. "They do." "Were you asked to make them?" "No." "Were you reimbursed?" "No." She typed without looking up. "Did you have access to the credit accounts?" "No." The question list ended. A form replaced it. At work, Marcus sent a text. "You okay to close tonight?" "Yes." "Take your time." The afternoon filled itself with movement and noise. The phone stayed in a pocket until the brake whistle cut through. An email waited. Subject: Notice of Review. The sender was the bank. The message explained that a routine audit had expanded due to overlapping inquiries. It thanked customers for cooperation and reminded them that clarity protected everyone involved. The wording felt almost friendly. Another message followed from social services. They confirmed receipt of additional documentation and noted discrepancies between reported support and verified records. Further review was underway. The word discrepancies sat there without apology. Linda called while pallets shifted nearby. "They're asking for statements," she said. "They want explanations." "They have the records." "They don't understand." "They will." Her voice tightened. "You went behind my back." "I answered questions. You could have warned me. They contacted you first." "That doesn't matter. They asked me after." A forklift reversed and announced itself. The call dropped when reception dipped. The message that followed was shorter. "You're letting strangers judge me." The bank scheduled a follow-up meeting. The calendar filled another slot. Back at the branch, a different banker took over. She reviewed the same documents and reached the same conclusions with new phrasing. "Based on what we see," she said, "your financial involvement appears voluntary but undocumented." "Meaning?" "Meaning you paid, but you weren't obligated." "That matters?" "Yes." She slid a disclosure across the desk. "This protects you." "And her?" "That depends on her explanations." The word explanations carried weight now. Another email from the agency arrived before I reached the car. It confirmed that Linda's application had been flagged for inconsistency. A formal interview would be scheduled. Attendance required. A line at the bottom reminded recipients that misrepresentation could affect eligibility. At the studio, the folder on the laptop grew thicker. Years organized themselves into PDFs. The work felt mechanical. Drag, drop, label, save. Linda called again. "They want dates," she said. "They want reasons." "Tell them the truth." "I needed help." "They'll ask what kind." Silence followed. "I can explain," she said finally. "You don't have to be there." "They asked me to be." "That's unnecessary." "It's their process." "You always hide behind processes," she snapped. "I use them," I said. "They're neutral." "They're cold, and so is debt." The call ended with a sharp breath. At the records center, a clerk stamped a page and slid it back. "Keep this for your files." "What happens next?" "She'll be contacted." "When?" "Soon." The system moved faster once all the pieces lined up. Another bank notice arrived that evening, confirming that accounts under Linda's name were under review. No action required from me at this time. The phrasing stood out. From me. At work, Marcus asked if I needed a day off. No. He nodded and didn't bring it up again. A letter from Social Services arrived 2 days later, addressed to both of us. It requested Linda's attendance for a formal explanation of financial disclosures. It listed the documents already reviewed and the ones still missing. The language stayed neutral. The implications did not. Linda texted once more. "They're treating this like fraud. They're checking consistency. You did this." "No," I replied. "The records did." No response followed. The calendar reminder for the interview appeared with a time and address. The appointment belonged to her, but my name sat on the confirmation too, labeled as a related party. The relationship had shifted, not emotionally, procedurally. I added the meeting to my schedule, closed the laptop, and set the alarm for the next morning, knowing the next step no longer involved conversation. The community legal office sat between a tax preparer and a nail salon. A handwritten sign on the door listed walk-in hours and reminded visitors to bring identification. Forms waited on a low table, already clipped. A volunteer called my name and led me to a small desk. She spoke evenly, like someone used to untangling other people's problems without absorbing them. "We're here to formalize separation," she said, "financial and residential." "That's correct." She slid a packet forward. "These documents state that you do not share accounts, liabilities, or obligations with Linda Carter." The wording stayed precise. Each sentence ended cleanly. You'll initial here, she continued, tapping the margin, and sign at the bottom. A pen moved across the page. Ink dried. Pages turned. This updates your address, she said. This removes you as an emergency contact. This confirms no ongoing support. Each line asked the same question in a different way. The answers stayed consistent. When the last page was signed, she gathered the stack and fed it into a scanner. You'll receive confirmation by email, she said, likely today. At work, Marcus passed by the break room and glanced at the phone in my hand. Legal stuff, he asked. Finished. He nodded. Good timing. We're short tonight. The shift took over. Pallets stacked. Orders cleared. The routine accepted focus without commentary. Messages from family started coming through in clusters. She's calling everyone. She says you cut her off. She wants help. None of them asked what kind. Another text followed. She asked if I could co-sign something, an aunt wrote. I told her no. A cousin added, she wanted me to talk to you. I said I wouldn't get involved. The pattern repeated. Calls went unanswered. Messages slowed. By the end of the shift, an email arrived from the legal office. It confirmed receipt of signed documents and stated that records had been updated across relevant systems. The message closed with a polite line wishing clients a good rest of the day. The phrasing felt automatic. The relief did not. The next message came from the bank. It acknowledged receipt of separation documents and confirmed that no further action was required from me. Linda Carter remained the sole account holder. Another confirmation followed from social services. The update was brief. Responsibility now rested with the applicant alone. At the studio, the inbox refreshed again. Subject: confirmation of update. Body: thank you for providing accurate information. Your records have been updated. Have a great day. The cheerfulness landed without ceremony. Linda called once that evening. The call went unanswered. A voicemail followed, clipped and strained. They won't help me, she said. They say it's all on me now. The phone returned to the counter. Another message arrived minutes later. Why would you do this to your own mother? Laundry finished and waited. Dishes dried. The routine didn't pause for explanations. At work the next morning, Marcus leaned against the table during break. Everything settled? Yes. He nodded. Good. That was the entire exchange. A letter arrived later that day from the bank, printed and formal. It confirmed closure of any implied association between accounts. The footer thanked customers for choosing their institution. The language never changed. Social Services sent another notice, this one addressed solely to Linda. A copy came to me as confirmation of status change. It stated that eligibility determinations would proceed based on her disclosures alone. The message included a helpline number and office hours. Family messages slowed to a trickle. She asked me to loan her money, someone wrote. I said I couldn't. Another added, she said you abandoned her. The replies stayed unsent. At the warehouse, the schedule updated again. Names shifted, hours moved. A final email arrived that evening, this one from the legal office. It confirmed that all filings were complete and no further appointments were necessary. The closing line read, "We appreciate your cooperation." The phrase cooperation felt generous. Linda tried once more the next day. The phone rang while lunch heated. The call went unanswered. No voicemail followed this time. Later, a message appeared from an unknown number. Please tell her I can't help, it read. The request came without context and didn't need any. The studio stayed small and manageable. Bills arrived with my name on them and left the same way. The electric company thanked customers for prompt payment. The bank sent monthly summaries that ended in zero balances and clear ownership. At work, Marcus mentioned an opening on another shift. You'd be good for it, he said. I'll think about it. The bus stop filled and emptied the way it always did after the late shift. People checked phones, adjusted bags, stared down the road. Work clothes blended into one another. The routine didn't ask questions. Marcus passed by on his way to the parking lot. See you tomorrow, he said. Yeah. The bus arrived late and left on time. Seats filled. A woman argued quietly with someone on the phone about groceries. Another rider counted change twice before dropping it in the slot. The city kept moving without commentary. At the studio, the mail waited. Most of it belonged. A bank statement confirmed balances where they were supposed to be. The electric bill listed my name and a due date that made sense. Rent cleared 2 days earlier without a reminder. An email notification appeared as the door closed behind me. Subject: case closed. The message thanked all parties for their cooperation. It explained that no further action was required and that records had been updated accordingly. The tone stayed even, almost kind. The signature belonged to a department, not a person. The system didn't celebrate. Another email followed, this one from Social Services. It confirmed the final determination and noted that eligibility decisions had been made based solely on the applicant's disclosures. A link offered resources for housing transitions. No mention of family. A text arrived from an aunt a few minutes later. She's putting the house up for rent, it read. Didn't ask anyone for help this time. No reply followed. None was needed. A cousin sent another message the next day. She tried to get me to co-sign something. I said no. The word tried did the work. At work, schedules adjusted again. Overtime went to someone else. The rhythm settled into something manageable. Linda didn't call. No voicemail waited. No new accusations came through the group chat. The silence felt procedural rather than emotional, like a file drawer closing. Later that week, a notification popped up from a real estate site. A familiar address appeared in the listing preview. The photos showed rooms arranged to look larger than they were. The description promised great potential. The house had become inventory. At the studio, a chair replaced the crate used as a table. A rug appeared, bought on sale. The place remained small, but everything in it had a purpose. Bills arrived and left. Nothing lingered. Another automated email arrived on Friday afternoon. Subject: thank you for your feedback. It thanked me for completing a survey I didn't remember taking and wished me a pleasant weekend. The cheerfulness stayed intact. The following Monday, Marcus mentioned an opening on the early shift. You interested? He asked. Maybe, came back. When does it start? He gave a date. The offer didn't require negotiation. Family updates filtered in through indirect channels. She's upset, but no one's stepping in. She said you chose money over her. No one argued. The messages came without follow-up. At the laundromat near the studio, machines filled and emptied. Quarters clinked. A television mounted high on the wall played the news without sound. Someone folded towels with care. A notification buzzed from the bank. Your account summary is ready. Everything matched. Another letter arrived later that week, this one printed. It confirmed that my name no longer appeared on any related files connected to Linda Carter. The closing line wished me well. The phrasing felt practiced. Work stayed steady, sleep improved. The days shortened without collapsing. One evening, while heating leftovers, a call came through from an unknown number. It rang twice and stopped. No voicemail followed. The phone returned to the counter. A final email from the legal office arrived before the end of the month. It confirmed long-term record retention and reminded clients to update information if circumstances changed. The message ended with a polite goodbye. That was the last official communication. At the bus stop again, a man complained about rent increases. Someone nodded in agreement. Another rider laughed without humor. The bus arrived, doors opened, the routine continued. At home, the lock turned easily, shoes lined up by the door, a grocery list stuck to the fridge with a magnet. The place felt functional. That was enough. Linda didn't ask to meet. No apology arrived. No explanation followed. What remained existed only on paper, stored and filed. The house she lived in became someone else's concern. The bills followed her name alone. Family conversations shifted away from requests and toward logistics. Work continued, paychecks cleared, the schedule held. The studio stayed small and entirely accounted for. Every expense made sense, every receipt matched a choice. No victory presented itself, no satisfaction announced its presence, just space that didn't require permission and a door that closed without an invoice waiting on the other side.